Well, welcome back to another exciting episode of Voices of Video. So, I am Mark Donnigan, and once again, I am joined by a guest who really needs no introduction. We are going to hear about all of the amazing things that our guest has built over the years. Today, we're really going to separate the signal from noise in video encoding. Costs are rising, workflows are fragmenting, hardware is changing the math, costs are under pressure. And my guest, Ikuyo Yamada, who is the CEO and founder of Capella Systems, has been at the center of all of this and is working with companies really with their product, Cambria FTC, for VOD and Cambria Stream for live to give them the highest quality solutions that are incredibly competitive. And so, first of all, I just want to welcome you, Ikuyo, to Voices of Video. It's really great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Mark. It will be my pleasure to be on the show with you. I'm excited for all our conversations today.
Well, maybe not all of our listeners are familiar with, with your company, with Capella, but I think it would be really interesting for you to tell the origin story. So take us back to like 2009 or even before.
Yeah, even before. So I was part of a company called Rhozet, based in San Jose. Rhozet, the team developed a universal transcoding solution, basically converting from different file formats to different file formats. And back then, when we started Rhozet, the industry was just about shifting from tape-based workflow to file-based. So the fact that Rhozet offered this software, very cost-effective transcoding software, that was kind of evolutional. So after that, we got acquired by Harmonic. And then after we got acquired by Harmonic, I felt that a lot of our customers still needed much better transcoding solution than what we offered as a Rhozet. Rhozet Carbon Quarter was a great product, but it did come with a lot of limitations. And I felt like the industry was ready for more modern, next generation transcoder. And that's how I started a company with a couple of original Rhozet members, and it became Capella. So our team consists of many expertise in video compression technologies. We started off as Rhozet and now Capella, and way before that, some of them worked for a company called Canopus, which developed a product called Procorder, which then became Carbon Quarter at Rhozet. So we have a team of like expertise, and we've been working together. We're a very tight unit. And when we started Capella, we had a hope to just develop a universal transcoding solution as well as a live streaming product, which is why we have a product called Cambria Stream. So back then, live streaming was done by very expensive hardware-based solutions only. Quality wasn't so great, and I felt like using our expertise in decoding and encoding, transcoding, we could come up with a software-based live streaming solution really designed for tier one broadcasting customers. So that's how we got started with Capella Systems.
Incredible. Yeah. Through the years, and I think many of our listeners, I would guess, have competed against or even worked with, or perhaps even, purchased and used Rhozet and Carbon Coder and, some of your early products from the previous company.
Yeah.
So yeah, I certainly have been aware. Incredible. Who are your customers today? What is the makeup? Are these these broadcasters, pay TV? Are they, what do your customer profiles look like?
Profiles, yeah. Most of our customers are either like tier one, tier two broadcasters, OTT, IPTV. For the Cambia stream side, we do have a customers who are non-broadcasters, like schools or church groups or
Mm-hmm.
companies who run like a sports and live events. So,
Mm-hmm.
but mostly customers who are creating content or delivering content of media. Those are our customers. It's a B2B business.
Yeah. Yeah. And are the customers primarily operating the infrastructure, or do you operate it for them? How does that work?
Yeah. So they basically buy our license and they do their own operation.
Mhm. You're a software company.
We're a software company. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Got it. Got it. Well, it's really interesting because the market has moved hard toward the cloud. I think that's understatement
Mhm.
of the year.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, IP is replacing SDI and production networks. And I know
Yeah.
that you're dealing. You have to deal with a lot of SDI and NDI inputs, and you're in broadcast type workflows. Um, I mean, shoot, I remember it wasn't that long ago when I had some private conversations with, some very key folks in the video encoding side at Netflix. And, it was sort of so when is Netflix going to do live? And, I was told in no uncertain terms, Netflix will never do live. And then here we are. Live is, a very important part
Yeah.
of the Netflix service and growing. And across the board, we see live, ad supported models are expanding. The
Mhm.
point is that the model of video distribution and video streaming is really transforming, and it's very dynamic. It's not static. It's growing. um, so, I'm just curious from your perspective, since you have also lived through these migrations and this growth, which changes, in your opinion, have altered encoder design? And how have you had to rethink how you're building encoders and even the architectures of how they're deployed?
So for back when we started Capella Systems, I think it was still the customers are confused about, what file formats to be used for what workflow. So everybody, I think a lot of customers are using all sorts of file formats and dealing with multiple uh, file configuration or target settings. That has changed, I think, a lot. Now I think the customers are using 5 or 6 main file formats, but they're looking for a solution like a VOD transcoder that can support those file formats more in depth. Right now, their workflow is not just about transcoding, going from one file format to multiple, but it also has to work well with other tools such as DRM, watermarking, encryption, packager, and such. So they're looking for more like flexible, adaptable transcoding or live streaming solutions. And we have to really think about where our engine, our solution fits in our customer's workflow. I think that customers' workflow has become way more complex. And then
Yeah.
at the same time, dealing with a lot more media content. I think when we started Capella Systems, we couldn't imagine live streaming software running like streaming hundreds of channels, but now like it happens. So we definitely shifted from very quality focused. Back then we're doing things like, okay, let's just compare the video quality comparison by frame. We don't do that anymore. But instead, what's the cost of transcoding these many
Yeah.
files or running these many channels? So we really had to think about now how do we change our engine so that we could achieve more throughput.
Yeah.
And that's how we landed us with VPU integrations and solutions with NETINT.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. We're, obviously gonna, talk a bit more about that, some of your
Mhm.
findings and how you ended up migrating to VPU. But, you said something that I think is really key. I think of it this way. I sometimes I recall the days, and we were talking before we hit record about the days when you'd walk into a room where there was a golden eyes, from a studio or
Mhm.
from a broadcaster, pay TV service, and I'm going to assume that not everyone even listening to this podcast is familiar with the term golden eyes, although you probably can intimate, what it means. But for years, there was a highly revered position inside pretty much any company distributing video. And there was an individual, maybe even a couple individuals who, had developed highly attuned and, highly acute uh, vision for being able to see video quality. And they effectively were the bar. They were the judge of what was acceptable, and that was their role. And it was actually a very important role because quality metrics weren't as well established. It was a little more challenging maybe to assess video quality, and things like taking static frames and comparing them. And,
Yeah.
we used to joke about, walking up to a large display and putting your nose on the display to look at pixels. But
Yeah.
I have more than one time actually pretty much witnessed that happening. So,
Yeah. But
but
also
now
back
that
then,
doesn't happen as much. And
mhm,
the assumption might be, oh, well, that's because video quality is maybe not as important. And I actually argue that that's not the case at all. It's just that the elements of what comprise the definition of video quality have changed, you know.
mhm.
And I'm just curious to kind of get your reaction. Do you agree with
I
that?
think,
Or,
yeah, I think video quality is important. It's just
yes,
the video quality, like say, is a lot better now. Like back then, the video
yeah,
quality, either by software-based solutions or
yeah,
hardware-based solutions, was not very good. I mean, like that has changed. It
uh,
has improved so much with the software-based solutions and then also hardware-based solutions. So now, we can create a decent quality video output without spending so much resource, because even with all these open source codecs, available solutions, they could deliver decent level
yeah.
of output video quality. And then that is so, not to say that video quality is important, it's just that it has improved a lot to the point that most of solutions can output acceptable
That's
um,
right.
video quality.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. I think you summarized it correctly. It's that encoders have gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
I recently was in a planning session for NETINT's third gen
Mhm.
chip, and there's a lot of work being done. I won't give away it's going to be a pretty amazing product, but video quality, the bar is being raised
Yeah.
significantly on the third gen chip. And it was pretty amazing as, we were sitting around the room with the engineering leaders and various folks from the codec team. And we were talking about the comparison to the open source targets, which is, the most natural. And it used to be, if you were talking live, if you could meet, medium, let's say,
Hmm.
for like X265, just for case of argument, it's like, wow, that's pretty good. And if you can do that in silicon with high density, it's like, whoa, that's not the high, but for live 60 frames, HEVC, like, in compute, that still would be somewhat compute intensive. Well, now it's not just slow as the target, it's even very slow,
Yeah.
and it was really kind of cool to sit around the room and say, yeah, absolutely. In fact, we're beating that. And it was just
Hmm.
like, wow, like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, if you said hardware would be very slow, X265, like people would say, that's impossible, but it's happening. It's happening. So, yeah. Well, really interesting. Now, where do you see the bottlenecks? it seems like building encoders today
Hmm.
is a lot more difficult because now you have to deal with on-premise, you have to deal with cloud deployments, you have to
Yeah.
deal with X265, or I'm sorry, X2. You have to deal with Intel x86 machines.
Hmm.
You have to deal maybe with ARM-based machines. You have various OSs that you have to support. So I'm curious, when you look architecturally, where are the bottlenecks now? Is it on compute? Is it at the orchestration layer? You know, um,
I think the bottleneck, the what is challenging for a lot of our customers that we deal with is that their media workflow has become so complex. It just
yes, it
involves
has.
too many um,
Yeah,
components, whether the
yeah.
ingesting, encoding, and packaging, watermarking, encryption, doing SSAI for ad insertion. Like it just involves too many pieces. And I think that each one of the component could work really well standalone, but it's not really
Yeah,
designed to work with
yeah,
all these other parts of the media workflow. I
that's
think
right.
that's one bottleneck. Um, and
So
then
would
it's
you
kind of
call
sort
that
of
like
like,
the
yeah.
orchestration? Do you think of that as sort of the orchestration, or is that more in the media processor framework, like the transcoder?
I think orchestration is a challenge. Also, orchestration is a challenge because it's dealing with solutions from different companies that are just,
Mm,
each of them is just focused on developing a product that works as pretty much like a standalone, a very
yeah,
limited space. And then
yeah,
you bring them all together, it just creates a lot of problems. Um, and then I think the computing cost, yes, the migrating to cloud makes sense for a lot of companies. However, the increasing egress cost of running all this compute in the cloud, it
mm,
becomes very expensive.
that's right.
So I think those things are very challenging to a lot of customers. So I think, which is why for us, instead of trying to be this company that just orchestrates and just do all these different solutions, we
Mhm.
just focus on just engine itself.
That's right.
Encoding, transcoding, so that our solution could be part of any media workflow that customers have, and then it works really well with all these different components of their media workflow. So we really worried about or focus on working with our partners and make sure that our engine is compatible and that it could just kind of fit into any parts of media workflow
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah, we're very happy to have Capella as a partner because this is, it's the ultimate example. The VPU is the ultimate example of an engine. And
Mm-hmm.
an engine's very important. I happen to like cars. And
Yeah.
so when I'm out shopping for a car, or if I'm just, admiring the neighbor's hot rod,
Yeah.
usually the very first thing that I
Mm-hmm.
want to look at and talk about and hear what they did was what's under the hood, the engine.
Yeah.
Um, and even if someone's not a car enthusiast, if you go shopping for a car, you at least how many miles per gallon, maybe what's the horsepower. There's some basic
Mm-hmm.
things that I think almost every car buyer kind of knows to ask, or eventually learns, hey,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I should go compare these across the various cars I'm looking at. But the challenge is that as great as that engine is, I can't drive an engine to the store.
Right.
I need four wheels. I need a suspension. I need steering. I need to be able to stop the car. So I need brakes. I need all these, I need a body around me so that, I don't feel like I'm just cruising around out there, going to fall out of it. Um, so that is very interesting with with a company like ours where we produce the VPU, and that's where it's super valuable to have Capella, who then takes our engine, puts it into. It's interesting. You also use the word engine, but now you're bringing a full encoder solution with the
Mm-hmm.
software around it, with the control interfaces, with the APIs, with the integration points, with
Mm-hmm.
everything that's required to then, maybe operate it standalone or connect that up to a bigger, more sophisticated architecture.
Yeah. And then
So
we designed it exactly the way so that it gives more choices to
Mm,
customers. I think that, some of a competitor's solutions kind of locks into like their world, and you just have to use every single one of their solutions, and it becomes very expensive
right.
and it's a black box.
Yeah.
But for our customers, we give choice. We allow customers to make their own choice. What's the best
Mm,
SSAI? Would you like to work with AWS or your space? Or like, so we work with all these different partners, and then
yeah.
you can deploy our solutions on-prem on Windows, in the cloud Linux. You could run our applications through UI, watch folder for VOD transcoding, or all
Yeah.
through REST-based APIs. So
Yeah.
we over the years of developing products around video compression technologies, what we learned is that there's absolutely no possible to come up with a product that's perfect. However, we can try our best to come up with a software that is designed to evolve and to adapt. And that's what we focused on. So that allowed us to do integrations such as with the VPU quite easily. It didn't take us a very long time
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
support VPU because our software is very modularized. So we can bring in other engines and then run it as a
Mhm.
part of our application. So
That's
that is
right.
very unique to us.
Yeah. And that's a very good point because the integration with VPU is relatively straightforward. And obviously, you have customers that they have different use cases, they have different targets, they have different technical requirements, they have different economic requirements. We, of course, believe that VPU could fit across all of them, or at
Yeah.
least most of them.
Hmm.
But realistically, you probably have some that still need to use GPU or still need to use CPU, or
Yeah.
maybe need to use all three. They have
Yeah.
one workflow, VPUs, the right engine, another one they might leverage
I really,
GPU. And so,
yeah, I really think so. I think for most of the customers, it's not one solution for all. Like you
yeah,
see customers using CPU, GPU, and VPU, and then
yeah,
there's like a fit for a different
yeah,
solutions depending on the workflow what they're trying to do. I think VPU
that's right.
definitely will be very beneficial for customers doing really high density streaming.
Mm-hmm.
And then also as well as like HVC, which could be
Mm-hmm.
very
Yeah,
slow using CPU. So there's a different requirement. There's a different solutions for different requirements.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. I'm just curious as well. How how are customers typically evaluating your solutions? And,
Mm.
to be more specific, are they looking at sort of absolute video quality, using perhaps VMAF, or some other quality metrics, or even subjective, just using their eyes?
Yeah,
Or are they looking at it? Does it come down to like a cost per stream? Does it come down to energy consumption? Or is there something else
yeah.
that you're seeing a major trend, like evals are kind of going in
What?
one direction?
Yeah. I think for a very high density live streaming channel project, the customers tend to really worry about what's the cost per channel,
Yeah,
including computing cost and
that's right.
encoding cost.
And in other
Yeah,
words, OpEx,
yeah. So
operational
that's
cost. Yeah.
operational cost, that's what they
Yeah.
worry about. For the
Yeah.
VOD transcoding, throughput is important. Okay, how many simultaneous jobs can be run on this kind of machine? So it's like, what's the throughput per hour? And then also the real-time speed. So if your source file is 1 hour long, can you get it? Can you just transcode the whole entire duration of the file within like
Mhm.
30 minutes, for example? So real-time speed is very important for VOD transcoding. I would say cost per channel is very important for live streaming projects.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I think we see things very similarly,
Mm,
very much so. It's interesting. We're we're getting pulled in, and when I say we, NetInt and VPUs
yeah,
into more VOD workflows, or I would say file-based workflows, and some actually are a little surprised sometimes when we're having conversations with companies who are just starting to get to know the VPU and starting to explore it. And they say, wow, I would have I would fully expect that for live, VPU must be getting the bulk of the encoding, traffic. And I would say that's true on a lot of platforms. But they say I'm surprised that someone would consider for VOD or for file based. And what we're finding is that more and more it's about the speed that those files can be encoded and processed. And so there can be like advertising workloads. There even can be, and I know you run into this because you deal with broadcasters, pay TV networks, like
Yeah.
kind of premium services, where in some cases they get files hours before they have to go live.
Yeah.
And you might say, but it's hours, like, and how many renditions do they have to create? And we're only talking about a 55-minute program. And, you would think,
Mhm.
like, why is that such a big deal? But it actually is. And so they
Mhm.
love VPU because they're like, wow, we can greatly accelerate how quickly we're encoding these files. So there's some real interesting use cases there.
Because I think the transcoding workflow, the throughput has become so important. It's because of
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
create like AVR, and instead of creating
Yes.
one stream
Yeah.
from one source, it's like you're suddenly creating 5 layers per source. And it's just
That's right.
a lot more transcoding jobs that you have to run in
That's
a short amount of time.
that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. So, modern pipelines, of which, again, you have a lot of experience supporting
Mm.
and fitting into. You have DRM. You already mentioned, you need to be
Mhm.
able to support DRM and watermarking, and there's, packaging, and there's a QC process, and there's server side
Mhm.
ad insertion, and there's
Yeah.
all of these components. Metadata is common, through all these systems. How much
Mhm.
are you either handling or processing or generating, or how much do you have to deal with metadata? I'm just curious.
So like it depends for the VOD, there's always a challenge, right? So now that with all this high volume of media that's being created every day, somehow the metadata is lacking. So you're just
Yeah.
essentially creating all these media contents that are very difficult to, maybe it doesn't come with index, doesn't come with information. So then it makes it very difficult to reuse those media.
Yeah.
So more metadata leads to more values of the media, and then that's not being done.
Yeah.
So for us, the metadata handling, like add insertion points information, um, those are the things that we handle really well, both in Canva
Mm.
FTC,
You have a
and
lot
then
of
also
experience with
like
Scuddy 35 then.
yeah, Scotty 35 is because also like our customers, like the topic is okay, how do we monetize the content? And I
Yeah.
think that add insertion, handling of that insertion, is very, very important.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting because I've become aware of some services that are starting to maybe think about or dabble or even experiment with um, some interactive ad units, where they exploit features in some of the more advanced codecs. AV1 is just one example, but there's some others where you could have like a base video stream, for
Mm,
example, but I could have maybe there's a logo or there's some unique element that
mm,
somehow the ad system knows based on demographic or some information
yeah,
about me. Obviously it can't be individually targeted, but these targeting systems are pretty amazing, so they can kind of get that could somehow personalize that ad experience for me that would be different from you, even though the base video is the same. And you think like this is getting close to the holy grail of the personalized ad experience, which is what was supposed to drive so much revenue and ARPU and just really economic opportunity in streaming. It's taken a little while, I think, for both the technologies to be developed, for the standards to be solidified. I was going to say
Hmm.
ratified, but in some cases, the standards have been out there for a while, but it's just really made concrete. And I
Hmm.
think we're really going to see over the next, several years, but not too far out, some really exciting, maybe to say they're interactive video experiences is
Hmm.
going a little bit too far, but some dynamic video
Hmm.
experiences. Have you,
Hmm.
are you seeing this too? Or, do you have maybe some customers that are talking to you about wanting to do some similar type things?
I think for what we get some requests for the live streaming side, I guess it could be also for VOD side, is like a
Mhm.
more personalized, a more customizable way to view the, like, for example, L-shaped ads or,
Yeah.
doing the live events.
Yeah.
Or one of the things is to, some of the incoming stream doesn't come with ad insertion points information, so it doesn't come with the
Mhm.
Scotty 35 or 104. Then by analyzing the video, they want us to suggest what will be the optimal
Yeah.
ad insertion points. So
That's
that
right.
that is a big topic. Or
Mm.
also things like doing the live streaming, do the logo detection or some brand recognition so that they can flag certain frames if it,
That's right. Yeah.
yeah. So those are the
Yeah.
things that's starting to come up in our conversations a lot.
Have you built some of that into your product yet, or is that on the
Yeah,
roadmap
so
based on
for
these discussions?
so when we build transcoding solutions, we knew that our next generation transcoder has to be smart in a way that it has ability to analyze contents, could understand certain information about the video, and then take that information and do the transcoding or create metadata automatically. So we can do things logo detection, image detection, speech to text. We can also do score detection, because score detection, when the score changes, often
Mm.
that could be queued as like the ad insertion cue points.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
that's interesting because you're right. Like in a football game, after they've scored, there is the setup. Sometimes, almost always a team takes a break, and so it's a very natural.
yeah,
Um, the team calls a timeout or something. It's a very natural break point for a
yeah.
commercial.
And then in the
Interesting.
combination with like
Yeah.
audio recognition, so like usually when
Yeah.
something exciting happens during the live events, then
Yeah.
like the audio level goes up. So
Yeah.
combination of
That's
that,
right.
and so then it also helps. That information also helps for editor to create highlight
Mm.
clips on the fly as well. So
Mm.
you can seek around those time points
Yeah.
and then create a highlight clips more
So
effectively.
for auto clipping and, creating
Yeah.
social media reels, things like
Mhm.
that. Wow,
Because
that's
I think
fascinating.
right now,
Yeah.
like I think the workflow, the live workflow and VOD workflow, they kind of go hand in hand together. It's not
Yeah.
just live streaming, but at the same time creating highlight clips to be used for VOD, or
Mm.
creating highlight clips and restream those highlight clips together as a
Mm.
playlist. So
Yeah.
um, it's kind of interesting, which is why, our customers are dealing with a lot more complex media workflow than it used to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. Got it. Well, last month we were together at IBC in
Hmm.
Amsterdam, and you made a big announcement with Akamai
Yep.
and regarding NetInt. So
Yep.
why don't you tell the listeners, what you all announced?
Yeah. So we announced, so we've been Akamai Cloud partners for now for a few years, I think.
Mm.
Um, so at IBC, we announced the integration with the VPU. Now the Akamai offers cloud machines with the VPU. You can now run our products, Cambia Stream and Cambia FTC for VOD transcoding, both in Akamai Connected Cloud.
Mm.
So essentially what it does for the customers is it allows customers to take advantage of a very high throughput computing resource of Akamai and run Cambria FTC to do VOD transcoding for a very high volume transcoding workflow.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, your results are super impressive, very consistent with what all of our customers and users report.
Hmm.
As the disclaimer goes, your mileage will vary because it's based on how the system's built, and there's
Yeah.
factors, right? But I believe you on Akamai are able to produce 7 channels with 5 ABR renditions each, correct?
Hmm.
On a
Yeah.
single virtual machine, single VM.
Yeah. So
It's
that's
incredible.
essentially 35 broadcast quality
Yeah,
H.264 output streams. So
yeah,
that is a significant improvement in comparison to CPU only based
yeah.
solutions. So, which kind of leads to a lot more, uh, like less cost for a lot of our customers.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And I'm just going to make a point because I'd already asked you
Mhm.
previously about the codecs that your customers use, and primarily it's still AVC or H.264. I believe there is some HEVC as well
Yeah. I
for
think now we're
4K.
starting to hear, yeah, HBC 4K, but I would say for our customers, most of them are still using H.264s. Yeah.
H.264. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm only making the point for the listener that amazingly, those benchmarks that Ioki just provided would be the same if you're using AVC, which they measured and evaluated with, or HEVC, or even AV1. It's one of the amazing things about VPU and about silicon and about ASICs is, unlike
Yeah.
software, where as the codec complexity increases, your density obviously decreases. But that's not true in silicon. So
Mm.
if you're listening and you're like, oh, but we're an HEVC shop, or we're starting to look at AV1, what would the performance be? The findings would be the same. So
Mm.
yeah, it's really really incredible. Um, well, I'd be curious, since we're talking about the cloud, and you mentioned you've been a partner of Akamai's for a couple of years. I made the statement early on, at the start of our episode, that the cloud is front and center, and I think everyone's workflow almost today.
Mhm.
But there is this interesting move to sort of this hybrid on-prem, maybe flexing into the cloud. There's some people who've been in the cloud who are kind of migrating, maybe, and eventually one day off the cloud to on-prem. There's different permutations. I'd be really curious, again, what you're seeing, what your customers are asking for, where some of um, where things are headed, I guess.
Yeah. So I think so we deal a lot with international customers, like non-US customers. We have
Mm,
customers in South Asia, Europe, and I think it really depends on when you talk to broadcasters, for example, in the US, they're all very 100%, let's move to the cloud. No problem. They're
yeah,
marching through this cloud.
yeah,
However, but when you go to Southeast Asia, there's still their main workflow is on-prem. It's because all their source files is already stored um,
that's right.
in the network, like on-prem, and it's not so easy for them to move everything. It will be a huge cost for them, and also some European broadcasters, because of security concerns, they can't move fully to public cloud. There's a limitation. So I think that um, on-prem workflow and in the cloud workflow, I mean, they will continue to coexist, I think, in hand. I don't think that it's that simple, that where customers just move 100% cloud so easily. I don't see that as a possibility,
Yeah.
at least right now.
Yeah, yeah, it's fascinating. We were recently a part of a project, a really fascinating. Just the requirements were really yeah, unique, I guess, is the best way to describe it, for the
Mhm.
European Parliament, and they actually are running part of that workflow in the cloud on Akamai, They're running some of it in their data centers that are literally on premise in government
Yeah,
buildings. And they're running some in data centers that are run by a third party. And there's very specific reasons for each. It's not that it's
yeah,
just like, oh, we'll kind of sprinkle this around.
right.
There's some data sovereignty issues, there's some security issues for certain workflows, and then some of them it's just pure cost. Where
Yeah,
it's like, well, where's the least expensive place to run this,
yeah.
and it's really so. I'm curious. Do you find that your customers have like a decision tree of when to stay on prem, when to go cloud, or even when to split the difference and do a hybrid?
I think a lot of our customers are starting off because they already have on-prem. I mean, almost all customers have or have
Yeah,
had on-prem
yeah,
workflows. So a lot of them are looking into hybrid solutions, which is what we offer. So they could run majority of transcoding on-prem, but once it reaches certain maximum capacity, then they can just go ahead and queue the jobs in the cloud. So just to kind of use cloud computing resource to handle the peak time. That's just kind of like what we see as a trend. And I think the cost definitely, decision tree, like I think the cost also is a huge factor. And also for the security concerns. And then also for VOD transcoding, okay, where are those source files located? If everything is
yeah,
on-prem, then
yeah.
it makes more sense to do transcoding on-prem as well.
That's right. Yeah, I know it's interesting because Akamai has very low egress costs compared to some of the
Hmm.
other public clouds. And that egress cost is such a lock in. Uh, you know, I affectionately call it the public cloud tax.
Mm,
but
yeah.
I suppose if I were running and designing the business for a public
Yeah.
cloud, well, I'd be quite happy with that tax. But uh, since I am
Yeah.
not, then I can poke holes in it. But it's that egress cost really is a lock-in factor. Akamai, I think, has done a really, really smart thing. Not, I think they have,
Yeah.
by reducing. I mean, I think it's like 18 times less than the
Hmm.
the big cloud that's out there that we all know
Yeah.
about. So yeah, it's really significant.
And I
Well,
think for us, it's like, the Akamai, a lot of our customers are already using Akamai to deliver their media content.
yeah. So why not
So
run
then
compute on it?
exactly
Yeah,
why not run computing on it?
yeah,
And then why not run it very efficiently using
yeah.
solutions like VPU and then
That's
really
right.
achieve the high density. So that
Yeah.
all makes sense.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, good. Well, you know, um, differentiation for a vendor like yourself
Hmm.
is always a challenge. There are so many vendors with I'll say again affectionately making all the same claims. um, and obviously when you really often get a chance to really talk and explore and go deep, you can clearly see where vendor A is doing something a little bit different than vendor B, vendor C, so on and so forth. But on the surface it's kind of like, huh, they all look the same.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious, like where your differentiation is. Your website does show really broad compatibility. You support. I mean, you have REST APIs, you have Kubernetes, you've got,
Mhm.
if I recall right, Prometheus hooks. You've got, you use multi DRM. There's plugin paths. There's a
Yeah.
lot that you have built. Is that one of, or is that your main differentiation, or where do you say, hey, this is an area that we clearly, are further along than
Uh,
those who might claim that they're doing the same thing, that
uh-huh.
we are.
I think one big difference is that our solutions are very flexible and highly adaptable. We work really fast. I think that when it comes to development cycle, we're probably the fastest in the
Mm,
industry. We can really move quickly and adapt to the market. So customers can really trust us to be their partners, like long-term technical partners, not just they're just buying something off the shelves and that's it. A lot of customers do complain about our big competitors where they don't even get customer support or no software updates, or they're just very slow. We're very opposite of that. We work almost too fast. And because we're a small team, we really focus on what we could be excellent in. So we don't try to do transcoding plus workflow engine that goes with it. Yeah, of course, if you try to do those workflow engines and more expensive, the revenue might go up. However, that's not our focus. Our focus is to trying to come up with an engine that could just really fit into customers' already existing workflow, because a lot of times our customers have their own workflow layers. They're looking for something, some specialists to do one part of their media workflow. So for us, that's the live streaming and encoding. That's why we develop a lot of plugins to work with other specialists instead of us trying to do everything on our own. So I think
mhm,
definitely the customer support, the fast development cycle,
mhm.
and we clearly have a focus that has not changed since
Yeah.
2009, is to provide develop software-based engine. I think those things are very different from our
Yeah.
competitors.
Yeah, amazing. I love the word adaptable. You
Hmm.
said that you build your product to be very adaptable. You're clearly indicating that your team's very adaptable and that able to work with clients and adapt to their needs and move quickly.
Hmm.
And that just summarizes in my mind the state of video streaming and video
Yeah.
encoding today. It's about adaptability, and
Hmm.
it's fascinating because we're seeing um, I'll say a rise. It's not that it's a completely new thing, but of these sort of smaller boutique-ish engineering companies
Hmm.
who are springing up and beginning to get somewhat large, 30, 40, 50, 60, 80, 100 engineers,
Hmm.
and their sole job is to just work with clients to help them actually build and deploy and integrate
Hmm.
solutions. And it's all about just the need to be adaptive. And the
Yeah.
old black box vendors, which
Yeah.
not to offend anybody who might fit in that category, but the
Yeah.
days of the black boxes that it's kind of, hey, just trust me, we're going to bring everything to you, like
Yeah.
nobody needs it. It doesn't fit the way that business works today. It doesn't fit the
Yeah.
way solutions are being architected. And
Hmm.
so it doesn't surprise me at all that you're doing very well in carving out an incredible niche by being adaptive.
Yeah.
Sounds simple,
And then
but it's not actually.
because we don't want to be the solution that limits our customers' architectures or
Yeah.
workflow. We want to enable them.
Yeah.
So I think that
Yeah.
approach is different from our competitors.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah. And, I try very hard. And those who listen to Voices of Video regularly know that we do not plug NetInt. We certainly talk about VPUs. We certainly,
Yeah.
but it's such a great fit for us as well, because being an enabler is very much how we see the role of the VPU.
Hmm.
When we first got into cloud gaming, obviously it makes complete sense when you have a high density one-to-one video experience, because you have one
Hmm.
game engine and one player. So you need very low cost, you need extremely high density, so VPUs make sense. So
Hmm.
it's not that people had to like get their arm twisted to consider why they should adopt. But some of our very first charter customers, large cloud gaming platforms, one of them in particular said, what is so amazing is not that you're bringing the efficiencies. Yes, that's amazing, but literally, if we didn't have VPU, we couldn't offer this service. It's like a zero or a one, and
Yeah.
it just wasn't even possible. and
Yeah.
so you're making a product and a service that, in this platform's case, millions of gamers
Mhm.
are enjoying. You're even making it possible. And,
Yeah.
that kind of warms our heart a little bit, just to
Yeah,
think
I
that,
think so. Like when I started this company at the very beginning stage of the startup, is you're very so busy just to keep up with customers' requirements. Okay, they're
yes,
doing this, computer's doing so we need to
yeah,
catch up, catch up, catch up. But
yeah,
at some
yeah,
point, you find yourself in the position where no, hang on a minute, you could come up with a technology that allows customer to do new things, allow
yeah,
customers to do things differently, more effectively. I think that's where you kind of get the recognition as being the leading technology companies that like not just keeping up with customers' requests and demand today,
yeah,
but you're showing them, they're giving them like new visions, like allowing them to
yeah.
do new things, new service, new way of doing things. And I think that's what we aim to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love it. Yeah, I love it. Well, Ikuyo, I know that we could keep talking. I do have to. I want
Hmm.
to end with this. You have a very interesting entrepreneurial story, and
Yeah.
apologies for leaving it at the end. And maybe we should do a whole separate interview where we just talk about your entrepreneurial journey. But you come from a quite enterprising family, and maybe you
Yeah.
could just take 3 or 4 minutes and just even
Yeah.
tell like your own story, which is
And
related to how the company even came to be, and how
yeah.
you're doing what you're doing today. So could could
So
could you tell us a story? I think
yeah.
listeners would love to hear.
So I was born in a small town called Kobe, Japan. So I grew up there up till I was 15. My father was a founder and CEO of a company called Canopus. They develop editing software now. It's called Edios. So prior to starting his company Canopus, he was a dentist raising 4 kids in this small town in Kobe. So I kind of grew up with kind of a very roller coaster. One day he's a dentist, one day he's an engineer. um,
Wow.
and then he at some point decided, when we were all very little, he decided he wanted to just really pursue his passion as an engineer. So he left dentistry and became a full-time engineer.
Um,
And back then, in a small apartment in Kobe, that was his office. So he would make things. My mom would pick up the phone calls and pack something and then ship, and that was how Canopus started. So I kind of grew up with this kind of mindset of creating a product, developing a product, working with the team, and selling it. And that was always our dinner table conversation. My dad would ask, "Okay, what do you think about this product? How do we come up with a tool like this? How much would we sell it for? What would you name this product?" So that was kind of like, our hobby is to coming up with the
yeah.
product ideas and talk
Now be
about it.
honest, be honest. When you were, I don't know, 10, 11, 12, 13,
Yeah.
however old you were you engaged in that, or were you kind of like, oh, come on, dad?
I did. I think I started getting really interested in that right around like a little bit older. I would say like teenager, like 13 and
Okay.
14. But
Wow.
I've always
Wow.
felt like it was not the Japanese norm. I think the expectations for Japanese girls is to, I don't know,
Yeah.
in the afternoon you play the piano or,
Y-
you
Yeah.
paint or like
Wow.
something. But then my activity consisted of just let's come up with a fake product and pretend like we're going to sell this,
So were you
Um,
drawn to the business side or the engineering side, or both of that?
I think both. Like I didn't really quite understand the detail more what my dad was
You're a
making.
creator.
Yeah,
Now
but then
we would
he
say
was
you're a creator. Wow.
but then I've always seen him with all his employees really enjoying the process of
Mm,
working close together, coming up with a product. And, he used to bring all his engineers back to the house and my mom would cook for them all. They'll sleep over
uh,
and then they're just still talking about products. And I didn't really understand the detail of it all, but I could feel the passion. And I kind of
yeah.
remember vaguely thinking like, it would be nice to have a life like that where I could just wake up in the morning being so excited about something and
Yeah.
have a team who share the same goal. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just roughly that's what I was kind of thinking. And then, so for some of our engineers here, they've actually worked for my dad's first company, Canopus USA, started in San Jose. And then from there, they joined me at Rhozet, and then we got acquired by Harmonic, and then they joined me in Capella. So some of them have literally only been working with me for over 15 years. um,
Wow.
yeah, so that's how that's my background story. It's just
Yeah.
I just kind of, I guess I grew up with it.
Yeah. I think it's so cool. We need to get your story out, because I know when, when we had a call first to discuss doing this interview, and sort of, of course
Yeah.
I knew the company, and but
Hmm.
we had not really talked about how you started and the roots, and
Yeah.
the marketing team was on, and everybody hung up so excited, like, we have to get this story out. So,
It's a unique story, but it's like nothing was really planned. It was just like
yeah,
series of events, and it just happens, and
it's
out of
very cool.
luck, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
ended up
love
here.
it. Business is personal, and business should be personal. It should be fun. And yes, we need to make money, and, we need
Hmm.
to do all the things, for our employees and our
Yeah,
families and all. But, it's when you can bring together, like you say, the passion that you saw in your father, in
yeah,
creating, and then, that got transferred to you. And then now you're able to continue, his legacy, and take that into the market. And, it's wonderful. I mean, we all have up days and down days, and hopefully on those
yeah,
slightly down days, we can lean
yeah.
on those good things and say, okay, we're going to
But I
get
think
through this.
I think you know this too. It's like running a business is like, you maybe 90% of the day, like the time, it's like a bad days, but then that 10% is so
Is
good that you forget
so
about all the bad stuff
it,
and you can continue. I mean, I think that high that you get on the good
yeah,
days, I think
yeah.
that kind of keeps you going.
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. Well, thank you so much for joining me on Voices of Video. We're very excited, to have Capella a part of the VPU ecosystem, and working with Akamai. Akamai is a very
Hmm.
important platform to us, and I know also to you. So,
To us as well,
um,
yeah.
yeah, so we're very excited about, just extending our collective reach into the market, and
Hmm.
wish you the best.
Thank you so much for having me today.
All right, good. Well, thank you. And to all of our listeners, as always, we appreciate you hanging in there and listening to us, and hope you get great value out of each of these interviews. If you're interested in coming on the show, if you have some input, if you love something, if you hate something, just let us know. We build this show for you. So thank you again.